Let's begin by telling you that human rights lawyer Dele Farotimi has been granted 30 million naira bail by a magistrate court in Ekiti State. The court also asked Farotimi to provide 3 sureties with a landed property within the jurisdiction. He was told to refrain from media interview and to submit his international passport, while the case has been adjourned till February 13, 2025. Farotimi is being prosecuted before a chief magistrate's court in Advocacy, Ekiti State, for allegedly defaming a senior advocate of Nigeria, Afe Babalola SAN. The arrest of the activist sparked public criticisms, with many Nigerians calling for his immediate release. The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi SAN, has declared the suspension of chairman and vice chairman of the 18 local government areas in Edo State as illegal and unconstitutional. The AGF, who spoke to journalists in Abuja on Thursday, stressed that removing from office or suspending any elected local government official in the country was the prerogative of councillors in the said local government area. The Justice Minister said his position was based on the July 11 judgment of the Supreme Court that granted autonomy to 774 local government areas in the country. He said his initial reluctance to react to the development was because he wanted to know the basis upon which the local government officials in Edo State were reportedly suspended. The Edo State House of Assembly suspended the chairman and vice chairman of the local government areas for 2 months over the alleged gross misconduct and insubordination. Earlier on the news, we told you about the granting of bail in conditions to Dele Farotimi, who is a lawyer, by a magistrate court in Ekiti State. And now to give more perspective to this, I have joining me our correspondent who actually covered the court proceedings, Bettina Ngbeli. Bettina, good afternoon to you. I'd like you to just give us an update of what the court proceeding was, culminating to the sentencing.
All right, before we go down to the bail hearing that happened today in court, I cannot say that without talking about, I'll call it a bit of pandemonium that broke out during the proceedings when the magistrate announced that he forgot some documents and had to go back to get it, while some are alleging that he got a call from powers that be, maybe to give instructions one way or the other, but he did say that he forgot some documents and stepped out briefly for about a little over 30 minutes before he returned to continue with the proceedings of the courts. In regards the matter of a SAN representing Dele Farotimi, that was denied, saying that no senior advocate of Nigeria can be allowed to represent someone at the level of magistrate court. And then the second matter that was also addressed today in court was the one regarding the bail application for Mr. Dele Farotimi, which was granted at 30 million naira bond with 2 sureties in the sum of 5 million naira, with one of the sureties having at least one landed property here in Ekiti State. His international passport was also requested to be submitted to court, which his lead counsel responded saying that the passport was already taken by the Federal High Court in the case that is running there currently. So they've been asked to get some sort of documentation from the Registrar of the Federal High Court to support their claim that indeed they have dropped the international passport. Mr. Dele Farotimi was also asked not to give or grant any interview to any media house regarding the case as it is still in court. So he's not allowed to speak to the media until further notice. Now, the trial for this court case has been set for the 13th of February 2025. So hopefully we expect that Mr. Dele Farotimi will be spending Christmas with his family while they await the trial of the said case.
Dele Farotimi, have they made any statement as regards this latest ruling?
Been made from his camp, apart from the lead counsel who spoke to us earlier just shortly after the court proceedings were over, saying that, of course, bail is the legal right of every person. You are innocent until proven guilty by the court. So right now, no one can actually say for sure that Mr. Dele Farotimi is guilty of the charges that are being laid against him. So therefore, he has the right to bail, and that is what the court has granted.
All right, thank you so much, Bettina, for giving us this update. We will talk more to, we'll speak more with you probably later on during the course of our other bulletins. Thank you very much. Now, joining us to talk more about this is the National Secretary Youth Rights Campaign, Francis Nwanguma. Of course, we'll be giving a legal perspective to this. Thank you so much, Mr. Francis, for joining us on the news. Hello, Mr. Francis. Okay, while we're here to get probably some sort of connection with Mr. Francis Nwanguma, we'll continue with the rest of the stories. Hopefully, we'll be able to touch base with him to get his own perspective too. But then let's look at all the stories that we have for you to tell you that troops of the multinational joint task force operating under Sector 1 in Mora have successfully repelled a coordinated attack by Boko Haram ISWAP terrorists on the military base at Iraq and Cameroon. The operations led to the elimination of 10 terrorists in the early hours of December 18, 2024. The attack began at dawn with the terrorists launching assaults from multiple directions at the Iraq military base. In a fierce gun battle, troops swiftly engaged the terrorists, eliminating 6 terrorists and forcing the others to flee with varying degrees of gunshot wounds. Unfortunately, 5 soldiers sustained injuries during the encounter and are currently responding to medical treatment. Still talking insecurity, the Crime Experience and Perception Survey released by the National Bureau of Statistics earlier this week showed that more than 2.23 trillion naira was paid as ransom by victims of kidnapping incidents that occurred between May 2023 and April 2024. This comes despite the substantial funding approved by the federal government for 7 security agencies tasked with ensuring the safety and protection of citizens' lives and property across the nation. According to the NBS report, an estimated 51.89 million crime incidents were experienced by households, with 51% of these incidents perpetrated in rural locations of the country. The crimes reported are theft of cars, burglary, theft of livestock, theft of crops, murder, theft of motor vehicles, home robbery, and kidnapping. Well, we're not done with the story around the bail conditions granted to the lawyer Dele Farotimi in a defamation case trial. And we have Francis Nwanguma, who is the National Secretary Youth Rights Campaign. Finally, has been able to join us to get more legal perspective to this. Thank you so much, Mr. Nwanguma, for joining us. Can you please unmute your device?
Yep, my device is unmuted.
All right, we can hear you now. So how do you interpret the charges first against Dele Farotimi, particularly the accusation of defamation?
Sorry, I can't hear you. Maybe a technical issue from your end. I didn't hear your question.
Okay, so let me just go over it again. I said, what is your own interpretation to the charges leveled against Dele Farotimi? That is the accusation of defamation against Afe Babalola.
I didn't get the first point, but from the one I got, I think, firstly, the issue of the defamation is well expressed in law as to if you feel that you are defamed by someone, the process is for you to go to court and seek a redress. But in a situation where a lawyer, a senior lawyer like Afe Babalola, had to, go to the police, in itself is like losing trust or faith, in its own jurisdiction, which is the court, because he ought to seek redress in the court and not using the police, to abduct his fellow lawyer. And so I think that the charges brought against him in the first instance have no roots, in the laws of Ekiti State, as you are aware, that the case of defamation was expunged, from the laws of Ekiti State. And in the first instance, Dele Farotimi shouldn't be standing trial, in Ekiti State.
Okay, so do you think the 30 million naira bill and the conditions imposed on Farotimi, including the submission of his passport, him having to refrain from media interviews, do you consider all that a form of restriction on his rights?
It is. I mean, the condition is stringent, just like, and I see this as part of a broader attempt to continue to clamp down on civil space, continue to witch hunt whistleblowers, continue to shrink, democratic space in Nigeria. I mean, the ruling, asking him not to, grant interview, is draconian. The law is explicit, where, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, grants us, the right to freedom of speech, the right to communicate and all of that. And a judge, sits down and takes away that, that right from you. And I think this need to, the Nigeria Bar Association really need to stand up to, all of these things, where, the rights of citizens are being taken away from them just because, certain powers that be do not just want you to speak. And don't forget that this is the same stringent condition that was given to Michael Lenin and other protesters who were, at the time, why they came out on bail, could not even grant media interviews, just to straighten up their own position. And also, a situation where suits have been filed against Dele Farotimi, in virtually more than 3 to 4 states. So how do you engage? How do you fight a man with his hand tied to his back and you begin to throw punches? He needs to defend himself. He needs to speak out. And all of these things, all of these things are still part of, like I said, a broader, a broader plans to continue to, stifle democratic space in Nigeria. And the bail bond for 30 million, is outrageous. It's stringent. Also having his a passport, international passport at the Federal High Court, and at the same time the Magistrate Court is requesting for the same passport. So I think that this this is not a bail, but it's just like giving a bail in one hand and using the other hand to continue to keep the person in custody.
Okay, so finally, before I let you go, I'd like to get your perspective on the speculations around the constitutional provision in cases of defamation. Some people have said that it has been expunged from subnational constitution and all that. In fact, that it was transferred from Lagos to Ekiti. If that also was like some sort of way to get justice where it is not deserved, I'd like to get your perspective to that.
When you even talk of justice, the truth was justice from the beginning to to where we are right now. Has there been any sign of justice where a man who has been, accused to have defamed someone, the first thing to do is for the police to come all the way from Ekiti. You had where the commissioner of police here and also the Zone 2 police head here said they are not aware of that operation. They came and abducted a lawyer. And not only that, they confiscated the phones and assaulted staffs of that particular chamber and whisked the person. In a 7 hours journey, the roads to Ekiti are very bad, very terrible. And you drove the person down to Ekiti State. And the next day, without the presence of his lawyer, against the criminal, the Criminal Justice Act, brought without the presence of his lawyer, without notifying his lawyer, you charge the person to court the next day, and immediately a magistrate court that could have ordinarily accepted an oral application for bail, remanded him in prison custody, and instead of giving a ruling, extended by 10 days again. While that was going on, the police filed another suit, at the Federal High Court, and then when you look at all of these things, you see that there is, justice is far from all of this, and there are powers that be that are coordinating and controlling, all of this.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Francis Nwanguma, for sharing your thoughts with us on this particular situation. Let me quickly talk to
Thank you so
Bettina
much.
before I let her go finally on this. I'd like to get your updates as regards what the ambience is at the courts premises and in the states regarding this. We know that before now there had been people who had actually supported the litigant against the defendant and those who were saying that this case should not even go to court in the first place. I'd like to get your reaction as regards how people are reading from this.
There are two different views to this particular court proceedings, and at court today this morning we had people, both indigent and people that came from as far as Abuja and Lagos, just to make sure they are part of the proceedings that happened today. People are of mixed emotions. Some people are in support, some are against, but business as usual in the state. Nothing far from the usual is going on in the state, and I would say that majority of those who traveled into the state for this particular case hearing have already returned. Some of them from Lagos already let us know that they were on their way back to Lagos. The same thing for those who are also going to Abuja. So it was a very brief in and out situation for most of the people that came in to witness the court proceedings.
All right, thank you so much, Bettina and Willie, for that. We'll get back to you in our subsequent bulletins. We got a very short break on the news. When we return, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar describes hack of National Bureau of Statistics website as suspicious. Details to come your way in a bit. Join us again. For staying with us, during the course of the news, we informed you that the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Lateef Fagbemi faulted the declaration of the suspension of Chairman and Vice Chairman of the 18 local government areas in Edo State as illegal and constitutional. And of course, to give a legal perspective to this and help us understand better, we are being joined by a legal practitioner, Monday Mawa. Thank you so much, Mr. Mawa, for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
So according to what the AGF said, that state houses of assembly do not have the powers to suspend or remove chairperson at the local level or at the council level. Help us understand what the true position of the law is.
Well, thank you very much. I think I'm very happy and proud that we now have an Attorney General that can speak the truth to power, notwithstanding which side is doing what is wrong. That is what Prince Lateef Fagbemi has just displayed yesterday. Prince Lateef Fagbemi, senior advocate of Nigeria, not just senior advocate, very highly senior advocate of Nigeria. Now, don't forget, before now, the Nigerian system, we have the federal system, we have the state and the local government. And all of these various components are all recognized under the Constitution. Now you have the federal government, which is at the center. Then you have the state, and then you have the local government, which we say is closer to the people. Now, Section 7 of the Constitution, Sub 1, has always recognized the fact that the local government must always be administered by democratically elected officials and not. Now, when you say democratically elected, it means caretaker committee is unknown to our Constitution. Unfortunately, our politicians, for whom they are over the period of time, what they just do is that, for instance, if A party was the party that was previously in power, as soon as B emerges as the next party in power, the first thing it will do is to dissolve the local government system and then set up a caretaker committee. Despite the fact that Section 7 of the Nigerian Constitution, which we say is the ground norm, when you say ground norm, it means that every other laws derive their validity from the ground norm. Notwithstanding the fact that the Constitution has always recognized the fact that the local government is independent of its own self. Governors have consistently abused that provision of the Constitution or observed it in violation. But thank God, if you follow the voting very carefully, on the 11th of July 2014, this year, the Supreme Court, in a landmark pronouncement, made a declaration on that existing constitutional provision that no state government has the power to dissolve democratically elected local government officer within the state. And also, the Supreme Court also pronounced on what we now refer to as the autonomy of the local government.
Okay.
By implication, they are now independent of the state
government. Okay, so yes, so this part of independence that you talk about now, according to the Constitution, that no state governor has the power to dish out punitive measures against local government chairmen, which means self-rule or self-regulation, so to speak. Yes. How do we now attain accountability at the grassroots level?
Thank you. Now, accountability will be to the councillor. Don't forget, at the national level, we have both the red and the green chamber, which is the Senate and the rep. Their duty is to checkmate the president. And at the state level, we have what we call the State House of Assembly, whose duty is to checkmate the state governor. Now, at the local government level, we have the local council. We have the local government council, which is checkmate. We call them the councillors. They form the parliament system in the local government level, just like we have the state assembly and the national assembly. So we have the councillor also at the local government level, and their duty is to checkmate the chairman of their local government. And so what we have today is that no state government again has the power to dissolve any democratically elected local government chairman. And as also, no state government has the power to call for the account of the local government. Okay, so the only body or the institution that is empowered to do that is the council. Okay, so at the federal level and at the state level, when it comes to checks and balances, are the arms of government doing their job diligently the way you see it? I didn't get that, please. So I said at the federal level and at the state level that you cited, are the arms of government checkmating themselves diligently the way you see it? Unfortunately, they are not. So why would you now expect that to happen at the local level? Now, let me quickly add this. What we are saying now is that it's like we are saying the State House of Assembly is not checkmating the governor properly. Therefore, the National Assembly should come and checkmate them. It is not allowed. So, just like the National Assembly cannot checkmate the governor within the state, so also by the recent Supreme Court judgment, the State House of Assembly cannot also checkmate. Okay, but then if the Constitution, so if the Constitution is granting this provision and the enactment of the law is not really fulfilling its cause, don't you think there should be a change? Well, that change must be by way of constitutional amendment and not by an executive order, like the governor of Edo State had just done. You can't wake up. It's just like a president waking up one morning and saying, "Oh, Okpebolo, governor of Edo State, I have hereby suspended you by a letter to the National Assembly." That is clearly unconstitutional, and it's a rape of democracy and of our Constitution. All right. Mr. Monday Mawa, local legal practitioner, so to speak, I beg your pardon. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us on the news. Thank you very much for having me. Moving on now, the Rule of Law and Accountability Advocacy Center, RULAAC, has called on the Southeast state governors to engage with community leaders, youth organizations, and civil society organizations to address grievances. RULAAC says this is a step forward in promoting peaceful resolutions and restoring peace, democratic and inclusive governance and prosperity in Southeast Nigeria. Rising from a press conference in Lagos, Executive Director of RULAAC, Okechukwu Nwanguma, says it is crucial to draw the attention of security agency leaders to implementing measures that monitor the conduct of operatives at these checkpoints.
The security situation in the Southeast has been marked by rising violence, including clashes between security forces and non-state actors, kidnappings, communal tensions, and human rights violations. This climate of insecurity has significant implications for civic space. Persistent clashes, often linked to separatist movements or criminal gangs, have heightened public fear and disrupted community life.
Nwanguma stressed the urgent need for leadership transformation in the Southeast, focusing on public welfare over corruption, noting that addressing insecurity and enhancing civic engagement could lead to stability and prosperity in the region.
Southeast is in dire need of a responsible political leadership that prioritizes the interests of the people. What is currently in place is criminal politics by an organized criminal cabal that is unscrupulous, unconscionably corrupt, unpatriotic, and self-centered, only in pursuit of self-enrichment at the expense of the welfare and security of the people. In short, Southeast urgently needs a leadership revolution that puts the people at the forefront.
Away from that, as part of its post-insurgency recovery strategy, the Borno state government has launched a new phase of teacher training for over 1,000 educators across 7 local council areas. The initiative seeks to address the acute shortage of skilled teachers and improve learning outcomes in schools affected by years of insurgency. News Central Sumori Kirawa completes the report.
A check presentation by the state government marks the commencement of the Phase 5 teacher training. These, according to the Borno state government, is to improve the standards of education that was affected by years of insurgency in the region.
After this program, 50,000 naira will be given to every participant for them to go and mobilize and come back to this training January 6th. Not only that, His Excellency has also given 30,000 for every month of stay. 90 plus 50 plus transport, approximately 180,000 would be spent on everybody here. In addition to free tuition, free materials, everything free. What does the government want? Just be serious.
The government has implemented the minimum wage. I don't want to say the minimum wage without calling the figure, because you might think it's the 30,000. It is the 70,000 minimum wage, which His Excellency has implemented to teachers and the health workers in Borno State.
Leaders of the NLC, TUC, and local government authorities appreciated government decision to integrate teachers who did not pass their prior training.
As Labour, we will not allow the ministry to sack a single teacher at the cost of this competency test, which they agree, and we sign a letter, which after the competency test, again he promised us those that fail, that need training will go for training. I would ask him, if you did not give them this training, we will switch back and come back and then start to talk on the table so that we know what we are going to do for them.
Let us have it at the back of our mind that this generation, which we are training, will be the one who will come and take over from us. They will be the one who will come and train our children and generation yet unborn. So please, let us do our best.
One major issue of concern discussed during the training is the absconding of classes by teachers, which the government insisted decisive action will be taken.
To za mu haɗa kai mu ga wannan education ta samu ci gaba a wannan effort namu.
With the quest for the educational recovery in Nigeria's state of Borno remains on course, the ratio of teacher to student remains another priority area. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
I'll tell you that the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has described the hack of the National Bureau of Statistics website as suspicious. In a statement released on Thursday, Abubakar noted the development adds up to what he called the bad tidings that have characterized the President Bola Tinubu administration. On Wednesday, NBS announced that its website, www.nigerianstat.gov.ng, was hacked. The agency asked members of the public to ignore any reports published on the website until its recovery. On the evening of the same day, that is Wednesday, the landing page displayed the inscription, "Page hacked," on a white background. The hack of the website occurred 24 hours after the agency published its Crime Experience and Security Perception Survey report, in which it said Nigerians paid 2.23 trillion naira as ransom in 1 year between May 2023 and April 2024. Resilience, courage, and hope have been identified as the major drive to achieving success in the midst of the current economic downturn in Nigeria. This played out in Jos, the Plateau State capital, north-central Nigeria, where a group of traders returned to their burned shops a few days after a fire incident razed down the building where they fend for their families. It was the spirit of hope and courage that informed this report by my colleague, Chizobanyowe.
Around this time last week, a number of traders with their families, friends and loved ones in this mattress shopping complex at the popular Old Airport roundabout were in tears, brokenness and hopelessness. Their shops and the goods therein were razed down by fire within a space of 2 hours, leaving them to count their losses, which amount is unquantifiable. The Yuletide has set in, and victims here have to battle with this sorry situation, while their counterparts are rather rounding up with plans for the joyous season. Up until now, a week after the inferno, nothing has been pointed as the cause of the incident, just as men of the fire service had said on that fateful day.
The fire, as of now, we cannot ascertain what actually happened to the investigation is carried out, but we have no possible cause of the fire.
With this situation here, noting the current economic hardship in the country, hopelessness is still written on the faces of these victims. However, the spirit of courage and resilience speak very loudly for them to be back in their business place a few days after the incident.
You must live and life must go on. If somebody did not die, then there is still much hope for you to live. We came out to tell the public that we still have our business in mind, and we want to just pick up from where we stopped, because we believe that God will still do another new thing in our lives. That is why all of us join as a family to come out to also just encourage ourselves. Truly, it's very painful. Millions have gone within a twinkle of an eye. Someone might have worked for it for years. Within an hour, everything vanished. It's not easy, but we have to give God the glory because we are still alive.
I decided to come out because I determined to overcome. Because staying at home cannot help me. I'd rather come outside and know whether God will bless us.
I can't just stay at home. The only thing I ought to do is that for me to come out and still to see whether if I can still retain my customers, because staying at home can't solve the problem.
Even in this situation of seeming hopelessness, these traders have said they remain resilient, they remain hopeful and courageous that things will get better in no longer time, even as they wait for people to come to their aid. In Jos for New Central, Chizoba Anyowe.
Still on community news, for many years, the people of Arafata Ameke community in Ibeku, Humaya North local government area of Abia State have been without good drinking water until recently when a non-governmental organization, Rector Cares Foundation, came to their aid. The foundation on Thursday handed over to the community the water projects it drilled and reticulated across the community to the owners of the land. News Central's Chumwegele was there and now reports.
So many communities in Abia State battle with the issue of clean water. Today, Rector Care Foundation has provided access to clean water.
The benefiting community this time around is Afarata Ameke Ibeku.
In the name of God, the Holy Spirit.
Then this is the fourth one here in Ameke Ibeku. So I'm pleading on, please, the sustainability they are in for. the tap and other things.
Greenforce, as partners in the Water Scheme project, says its focus is in the provision of support for rural communities and groups challenged by incentives that they can afford.
Ihe foundational na-emekwe ngwụ na enweta ego anyị retere otu awụ company ha ewepụta ego mara amụma a support project dị nga otu unu na-ahụ ihe mega ihe ị gaa n'India ị gaa na Bangladesh ị gaa mana Denmark ebe anyị si otu a ka esi emeche ya enyere ndị mmadụ aka because anyị believe na ego na onwe ya wụ onye awụ ambition anyị onwe ihe eji ego eme bụ ihe dị anyị n'obi ọkọ na ihe dị otu a.
Prince Okechukwu, who represented Abia State government at the commissioning of the water project, commends the foundation and charged the people to own the project.
So, okay, no, Ibadanya, Nioma, Lotes, Yadigite, Unawike, Great local security network.
The founder, Onyekachi Erite, says his desire to provide clean water to communities across Nigeria is born out of a childhood passion. While Greenforce expresses concern over the sustainability of the project, the founder of Rector Cares Foundation assures of measures already in place to sustain the program and protect the facility.
But making people understand that this is a solar-based solution and also trying to build up that maintenance culture for the communities. I think these are the very little challenges that we have, noticed.
So we had to bring up an initiative called Water Committee, where we inaugurate locals. They will be among the water committee and they will help in part of the sustainability.
He discloses that they have made access to water by the residents of Afarata easier.
We had to drill over 500 feet to get clean water because of the topography of the community here in Ameke. Then when we drill the water, we use ground force submersible pump. Then we also reticulated, not only behind me, we also have like another pump here. Then we also reticulated it around the community.
The residents and the indigenes of Afarata Ameke Beku say they will no longer bother about purchase of clean water.
God has done it through them. We have got a new water, and we are all happy for that. God will bless them.
Earlier, the founder and chief executive officer of Rector Cares Foundation also donated a water borehole, newly built toilets, and a pad center to Ibeku High School in Omahia. In Omahia, for News Central, I am Chinwe Ogele.
In Africa, we tell you that Mozambique is braced for an escalation in protests after the announcement due by Monday of final results of a disputed election, a turning point in 2 months of unrest that has killed 130 people and caused major disruption. Opposition leader Venancio Mondlane has threatened chaos if the Constitutional Council validates the initial results that found it came second in the October 9 vote to the candidate of the ruling Frelimo party. The council is, however, expected to sign off on the results of the Election Commission, which said that Mondlane won 20% compared to 71% for Daniel Chapo, the Frelimo candidate. Mondlane says the count was rigged in favor of Frelimo, and a separate count shows that he won 53% to 36% for Chapo. The dispute has sparked an explosion of unrest in the impoverished Southern African nation. Outside Africa, Sri Lanka's Navy rescued 102 Rohingya refugees, including 25 children, from a fishing trawler adrift off the island nation's coast. The group, fleeing persecution in Myanmar, was brought safely to Trincomalee, a port in eastern Sri Lanka, where they were provided with food and water. The mostly Muslim Rohingya face severe persecution in Myanmar, and each year thousands attempt dangerous sea journeys heading mainly towards Malaysia or Indonesia in search of safety. These perilous voyages often come with great risks as the refugees seek escape from the violence and hardship they face in their homeland. The first United States diplomat to visit Syria since President Bashar al-Assad was removed earlier this month are holding talks in Damascus with the country's new leaders. This includes the Ayat Tahrir al-Sham group that Washington had designated as a terrorist organization. At the top of their agenda will be the interim government's vision for the future of their country and how the United States can help support them. Western states have been mulling over whether to lift HTS's terrorist designation, which comes with a group of sanctions. It, however, does not prohibit U.S. officials from speaking to its members or leaders. Meanwhile, hundreds of Syrians are protesting in central Damascus, calling for democracy and women's rights, more than a week after an opposition coalition ousted President Bashar al-Assad. In sports, the much-anticipated National Sports Festival has again been postponed. The festival, tagged Gateway Games Ogun 2024, will now hold between May 16 and 30, 2025. The postponement came less than a month before the commencement of the festival. The festival was earlier scheduled to hold in November 2024 in Ogun State after the state won the hosting bid during the closing of the 21st NSF on December 10, 2022. But in May, the former Minister of Sports Development, John Eno, announced the postponement of the Games to January 2025. The latest postponement was announced in a communique released after a joint technical meeting held in Abeokuta, Ogun State on Thursday night. The reasons for the postponement were not stated in the communique signed by the chairman, Main Organizing Committee, Adebukola Olokbade. Let's now tell you that standing coach Daniel Ogumodede has named 18-man squad featuring veterans like Rabiu Ali, defenders Sadiq Ismail and Stephen Manyo, including forwards Sikiru Alimi and Anas Yusuf for Sunday's 8th African Nations Championship qualifying match against Ghana's Black Galaxies in Accra. Goalkeeper Henry Ozuemena and striker Abubakar Adamu also made the cut. The Super Eagles B, with Ogumodede alongside the other coaches in charge of the team, had staggered training sessions over 3 weeks from October before a final training camp commenced at the Remo Star Sports Institute, Ikene Remo, 3 weeks ago. Sunday's first leg fixture is scheduled for the Accra Sports Stadium, with kickoff set for 4 p.m. Ghana time, and that's 5 p.m. in Nigeria. And some kilometers away, both countries' under-17 girls will be battling for the inaugural WAFU B under-17 Cup final at the Ghana Center of Excellence in Pram Pram. And that's all at this hour, but before we go, we'll look at our top stories again. Human rights lawyer Dele Farotimi has been granted bail at a resumed sitting in Ekiti Magistrate Court. Attorney General of the Federation has declared suspension of Edo Local Government Area Chairman illegal and unconstitutional. We also told you that Mozambique is bracing for escalation in protests after announcement of final results due by Monday of disputed election. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Evo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekon Onabanjo.